Welcome back, guys, to the Bear Podcast Show with me, Sean Scullion, aka the Handsome Stranger, Owen Mallon, aka the Bear, Aidan, behind the scenes, the face for radio, and today we have Diona and Sean. Welcome, guys.
We're going to jump straight into.
You know what? Today we were dropping our daughter off at nursery, and Sean was like, "Oh, we were supposed to like email them to like change the days that she's staying in." And I was like, "Don't worry about it, Sean. I've done it a few weeks ago." And he was like, "You were like," I was quite passive aggressive about it, as if like I do the admin. Don't worry. And he was like, "But like, are you ripping out our kitchen today? Because we're getting a new kitchen, and Sean is the one ripping it out." And I'm like, "Listen, we both have our jobs. That's how it works.
Home renovation stressful shit. Like that's the first start of a row. Like
there's a lot of ladies now doing it. See, like going through TikTok and Instagram and stuff. Like a lot of ladies are.
I like ripping kitchens out and.
That's the aggressive side of them.
I did see a few of them with a couple of power tools in their hands, but I have to be honest. I have to be honest, not 100% sure how much work they were going to do. It was like some lady, she was like, "I'm a joiner," and I was like, "I think you've mixed up where you got dressed for." Like,
up until I think a few years ago in our house, it would have been me that done mostly the DIY stuff, and I wouldn't have been ripping out a fucking toilet, like, but
painting,
and like, putting up shelves. That would have been me. You would flat pack furniture, all that stuff, all me.
Flat pack furniture asked to be listed in divorce fucking proceedings.
Yeah,
I actually one time, which wasn't my wife at the time, I was like, "Just go."
Yeah,
I'll phone you when it's finished. 3 years fucking later.
Yeah,
they're the worst.
Lidl or not Lidl? What do you call that? Fucking
IKEA.
No, there's actually a guy that goes around, which I didn't know this, and somebody said this, does it, and I was like, That's a business.
We've gotten to the point now where we can put up stuff together, but I'm the instructions girl because Sean has always lived by like the whole, I know what I'm doing. There's 10 screws and 10 holes. I'll just shove them in. And I'm like, no, but there's different screws for different holes. Do you know what I mean? Like different sizes. And then I'd have been like, I'll read the instructions. And
you're thinking something else, aren't you?
just holes and screws. Don't know why she went with that description. But anyway, are you sure that wasn't an only Bob's job?
I wondered why we ended up writing every time we put up a picture.
Oh, jeez, we built the wardrobe and pregnant. Oh, we built the wardrobe.
So I would be the one reading the instructions, and then Sean would be the brawn who would carry out the instructions. But I feel like we're both very like overly nice now. We were putting up our gazebo a couple weeks ago, when we thought we might get some sun, and I'm reading the instructions to the T, trying to make sure like everything's done exactly. I hate when it's like a shoddy job, and Sean's the one like holding all the big planks and like putting it all together and doing all the work. But like we're both like trying to be overly nice because we know it's so easy to end up in an argument when you're putting up stuff. So it's like, do you know, maybe you are like people at airport security and you're just like, hello, like you're so nice to them because you're like, these are the guys that are going to arrest me. So that's what we're like.
But every year we write a Christmas show together, or a couple of them we have done for the past few years, and only recently have we got into like a rhythm of going, right, this is what you do that fucks me off, and this is what I do that fucks you off.
Yeah.
Like she types 100 mile an hour, but there's spelling mistakes everywhere, and it drives me mad. So now I don't look at her laptop and watch her type, and I sit at the other side of the room.
It's all about solutions.
100%.
It's
Sean's a grammar Nazi, right? And I'd be like, listen, I'm going to go, because we would write very differently. I just like spell all the ideas onto a page, like Sean saying, and it looks like a pile of shite, and I'll go back and fix it. Yeah. But Sean wants to write it perfectly as he goes along. So now we don't work together. No, we don't. We just figured it out.
I have a mate, and you couldn't describe this guy any better. Like, you know, you could write a thing into the group, right? And even if you're giving him shit, and then he just like highlights one thing, and he's like, Dale. And you're like, where do you go with that? He's Ross. You know Ross out of Friends?
Yeah. He's and you're like, do you realise I emailed you the cure for cancer? And you're emailing me back that I've spelled the word wrong.
How do you find the balance for working together? Then obviously he's, you know, in the same industry, the same sort of thing. He's obviously, you know.
I think we work well together now. I think it takes time to like figure out, like Sean's saying, right, that's going to end in an argument. So the solution is I'll not look at your laptop whilst you're typing, and I'll sit on the other side of the room. And then, because the most work that we do together is when we're writing these like Christmas plays, the comedy plays. And a lot of the time, I would be more like structurally going like, oh, that doesn't make sense for that character. That's not right, because I come from a theatre and drama background.
Yeah.
And Sean's like, but I really want to say that joke, because he's coming from like a joke writing perspective. So I think those both worlds blended make for a great script and a good show. But we have had to learn how to not get divorced every week.
I like that, because you bring different shows and the humor, and you're bringing it around it. Is that a big part of what you have want to do, or the shows, the screen?
It almost just happened
Sort of
organically,
happened,
didn't it? Because Diona has only been a comedian the past maybe 4 years.
Yeah, on stage, but in our house.
It's just like, don't undersell me.
Well, yeah. But,
Paid for it for 4 years, but fuck me, have I been funny?
so yeah, basically, it got to the point where I think I was one of the people that talked you into actually doing stand-up.
100%, yeah.
Because it got to the point, like, Diona, her acting career was flying, and I was like, you would fucking clean up in the comedy world here. Like, there's not much competition in terms of like other female comedians, and you could rise to the top very quickly.
That's a great way to encourage someone. No one else is doing it, so you could be shit and you'll do well.
To be fair, if I was trying to encourage you, I would go that angle. I'd be like, you clean up.
Yeah. I think I did a maid of honor speech at one of my friends' weddings a few years ago, and I remember after that Sean going to me, well, that's it. That's stand-up.
You've done stand-up
You
comedy
wrote 10 minutes, people laughed.
You delivered
That's it.
You performed it.
Was there
holding
big
the
pressure
microphone.
on you?
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh,
Because my husband's a comedian.
And she's going to be good. Like, she can deliver this, and you're like,
Oh, I know. Because you always think, like, imagine you'd have encouraged me, and, like, it still could be the case, and I'm living obliviously, but, like, and then I got on stage and started doing stand-up, and you were like, oh, I shouldn't have said anything.
oh my god.
Good shit.
It would have been the worst prank ever. Wouldn't it? Like, you'd have gotten that, be like,
One more year, a long play joke, but one more year, and I'm gonna let her know.
But hey, it's bound to be the hardest thing ever to go up and do that. Like me personally, I'd be like,
I think brain surgery is probably the harder.
No,
I
not
think-
a bit.
No, those guys they get to go home at night and switch off.
but you know what I mean? If you're you're a singer, people know your songs. They're coming to listen to your song.
Yeah.
But I want to be entertained. You know, I'm coming there and I want to be going out.
do you know
out
what
on the
though?
sides.
A lot of people see the big comedians on the big stages and the big arenas on TV and stuff, and they're like, oh, I could never do that. But you start, like, it's like walking into a shop and seeing the manager doing all these things. Do you know what I mean? It's like you have to start at the bottom and work your way up. So it's not as stressful and as strenuous and as nerve-wracking and stuff as people think. Like, you do get nervous, and there are sort of things that are good and bad at the start, but you just start at the bottom, and
It is.
and you work slowly.
It is one of the
Towards
jobs
the
though
top.
that are like, it's a one man band. Do you know, like, you wrote it,
You're on your own.
you've delivered it. If no one laughs, there's nobody to blame. Like, if you're in a play or a TV show or whatever that somebody else has written and you're part of the cast and it doesn't go well, you can go, oh, well, the lighting was shite and the direction was bad, and, you know, like, the script wasn't great, and but whatever, you know, or the audience wasn't good. That you can blame it on a million things, but when you don't do well as a stand-up, there's really nobody to blame but yourself, and that's the onus you put on yourself. So I think that's probably the most daunting part of it.
But and you know, Sean was saying that there's a vulnerability then when you go to that point. You're fully exposed. You're there, and you've wrote this, and
You can't do fully exposed anymore. They've stopped that. They have stopped that.
that's another subscribe service. but like, you're going to bring the worst out of me. But it would be, because I've seen, we went till one, it was locally. I think you're emceeing it, and you have people heckling. There was a wee dick at it that night, and now he was like, shit. And I was like,
Who was emceeing me?
oh,
Thirsty Jays.
Yes, Thirsty
Mind.
Yes, and there was a guy kept talking.
he was such a dick.
To everybody, every act was on.
And even when you were like, and I genuinely afterwards, I was like, I think there's something wrong with that guy.
I do think he had extra needs, but I do. So I think that's why everyone was very easy on him, because it's difficult when you have members of the audience who have like learning difficulties and stuff, and they don't realise the line, and they're not trying to be horrible, and then and it's hard. Sean and I talk about this all the time. Sean MCs a lot. I don't really, and that's a skill set upon itself, and it's the hardest job of the night by far.
I was thinking that.
And the least rewarding.
The least rewarding,
Because
yeah.
none of it's wrote. None of it's thing.
Well, a lot
and
of
if you're
it's-
trying to cancel him out, or you're trying to keep,
Yeah.
if it died a death to that, and you're trying to like,
And
it
your
would-
first reaction is to go, like, it's just to tell them to fuck up, or just like to say something cutthroat to like stop them talking. And but then there's a fine line of coming across horrible to the audience, you know. And also, especially if it's somebody who has needs, then you're like, shit, I don't want to be horrible to them. But then also they're sort of ruining the night, and it's a fine line, like.
I actually was sitting in the back, and I was like, I'm gonna tell that prick to shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
And then the next thing I was like, no, nobody does that. There must be something wrong there. Nobody does that. But also must come with experience too, because I actually laughed because we had me and Sean met Paddy at another show, and then he said he was in town. We says, Jesus, we'll get tickets for that and we'll come down to the night, you know. So we called down, and then he must have been last on, was he? And he it must have been easier, because he's sitting watching and he's like, this wee dick, I'm gonna come out and shut him off straight away, and must he literally come out to go at, say something to lead him to go at him. And I was like, it must come easier with experience to deal with him heckling.
Definitely, and especially if you MC a lot, like, which I don't. I think the more you MC, the more you learn to deal with people like that.
Yeah.
But also, I genuinely, not to pull out the sexist card, but when you're a girl on stage and you're MCing and you tell someone to fuck up, immediately people stop liking you. And if you're a man on stage and tell people to fuck up, people think it's funny.
Yeah.
It's different. It's different.
There is a different level of sexism right there.
Yeah, why can't I just tell people to fuck up?
No, I just want to just be treated normal.
Should be on Good Morning Britain now next week. Just want to tell people to fuck up.
I'll be on the Nolan show if I'm lucky.
But tell me, you're saying there about writing, you know, you're writing own jokes and then you have to go and perform them. Is there nowhere where, like, for me to stand up wouldn't
open
be
night?
for me, but if, say, I'm a funny guy writing down jokes, does people perform other people's jokes? No, not at all.
No. That's a big
That's a
no.
big
Is it I?
problem.
Yeah.
No.
I thought that was a thing.
No.
If you're at the very high end of it, somebody else is writing your shit.
Somebody else would be writing some stuff for TV shows that you would go on, and there would be like a writer's room. But
Not so much for like tours and stuff. I think tours, a lot of comedians kind of develop their own set over the year. Do you know, when they start out doing 10-minute spots and then 20-minute spots, half an hour, and they develop this hour or whatever.
It's
that
funny,
they
I
go
didn't know that was a
tour, but-
no-no.
Yeah, it's huge. Like now in
Oh,
the
yeah.
60s and 70s, there was a TV show I think called The Comedians. Excuse me. And, some good shit. Basically, it was the likes of what do you call him, like from Catchphrase, and you know, it was all like the old school kind of comics. No, but
Was he not the one? No. We went to a pool party. His one. No, go on. We'll cut that one out.
so basically, there would be maybe 6 comedians on the bill or 8 comedians or whatever, and they would all fight to get on first, because when you got on first, you got to tell all the best jokes, because they were all Paddy Irishman, Paddy Englishman, Paddy Scotsman.
sharing
you know,
jokes, sharing
the
material.
wife did this or the wife did that. It's all just like a free for all. It's just whatever you could gather at the time, whatever you heard in bars or pubs and clubs, you just got on stage and told them.
Like the Magic Circle. You know,
Yeah,
Exactly.
the
That's
Yes,
why I'm
yes.
asking, because,
Yeah.
you know, obviously, songwriters, you have songwriters, people get up to do the singing.
Yeah.
The magician, we had Leon a few weeks back, and he was like, he was one of the ones that actually wrote them for other people to perform. And that's why I'm asking you, but
No.
that's a no-no.
all your own
100%.
stuff. If you, it's a massive black mark against your name if
Yes.
you're known to do it's if you do somebody else's material, it's theft.
Hey, well, it's funny.
Joke stealers.
It's
Yeah.
funny. It's funny you saying that, because like obviously, you know, there's a close community in the comedy
Comedy circle.
comedy circle, comedic. I don't know where I was going with and I did see somebody took a pop at somebody else for using something not that long ago, and thing, and I was like, shit, took that
Turned
really
out to be a big
personal.
mistake. It turned out to be a big mistake, and there was a lot of apologizing
Yes.
and things like that. But that's
That wasn't
all
true, because there was,
Yeah.
there was
Yeah,
no
yeah.
theft of material there whatsoever.
No, but it's funny because I have seen like similar things are funny, and like if you found something funny, something mean you were telling a story and it was a similar style, like
but that happens all the time.
aye, that it's,
You know.
it's funny in both ways, but it's not because it's you've went and repackaged somebody's joke
Yeah.
or thing.
So for
But-
instance,
But
like
people are wild quick to get like that.
yeah,
That's
I
mine.
own that. But that's the thing, like for instance, like I think everybody knows that obviously it was Paddy on the Mublog podcast had said that Aaron Butler had taken material which he didn't, and it was on and Paddy knows that now.
Awkward,
But
but
what-
at the start.
But what has happened, if you look at it, they both have grown up in West Belfast. They've both went to like Christian Brothers. They both have very similar backgrounds. So by just like, there's going to be cross contamination there. You're going to have similar stories to tell. If Aaron Butler had stood up and started talking about going to the Czech Republic to do IVF, I would go, I think that's my bit, because I don't think you did that. But if it's just about growing up in West Belfast and going to Christian Brothers then, and jokes around that, then like you're gonna have they say now no idea, no concept is completely original anymore, but you have your take on that thing.
Yeah.
You know, and if it's the punchline that's the joke bit that's exactly the same, then maybe you did steal it. But also, great minds think alike. You know what I mean? Like, you're not the only genius to have thought of something. Like you always say about like the first punchline you think of is like.
But I think I think the best way, I would be wild like this if something like that happened. I'd be like, well, let's just do it. Let's call it out. That's you know the way it was awkward to watch. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, at least they put it to bed. It was
They
dealt
did.
with, and
They've shook hands on it and accepted that it was no theft.
But that's
involved.
what I mean. But people are very, very like. It's such a personal thing, because then I suppose it is you. It's your personality. It's your humor. It's your writing.
It takes so long to write stuff.
But
Yeah.
even in that, we're seeing, like, we were doing a vlog way, and you're planning video and stuff and doing that day. People are not aware of how much goes into it.
Yeah.
Something like, you know, it's all right to be funny in your friends in a circle and to make a flipping mark, and you're quite quick-witted, but to put together a show, to deliver it and keep it going, and there's so much work in that.
But see, even with social media too, see, even when you post like a meme or a funny picture or a funny story or a topical joke, I've almost stopped doing that now because so many people take it. I have to like put a
watermark?
a watermark
Oh,
or
yeah,
something
yeah.
on it, or my name somewhere hidden inside it, and then when people steal it, you go, here, look at my name. You've blatantly stole that from me. But there's pages that are like something crack, Cookstown crack or whatever, for example. And they would take something of mine and just save the picture, and then they would upload it, and
As if it's their material.
Oh, I've
Yeah,
seen
yeah.
that.
10,000 likes, and then you message them and they go, "Ah, fuck lad, wise up, it's a bit of crack," and you're like,
No, because
No.
that's
Yeah.
my
That's
income.
my business.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's my
Yeah.
business.
It's my livelihood.
"Yeah, I'm trying to build my followers here so they come and pay to see me."
Well,
but
Yeah.
Just call them all out.
Or
Call them
Because
out.
it
Just
is-
call them
I
out.
should go down my phone.
It
And
Oh,
is the
100%.
least. It is which is a shame, because the comedy world is thriving here in the north at the minute, especially. But it is the least respected of the art forms. It really is. Like, there's no equity, there's no union, there's no agents. There's, like, in the north anyway, really. There's no proper structure for comedians to be protected with their material, or even like there's not even like this is like the basic rate that you can get for a gig and you can't get any less. Like that doesn't happen. Whereas if in the acting world and the writing world and all of the other art forms, there's regulations and laws, and you know, there's people who have your back. But when you're a comedian, it's like you can get ripped off so easily.
is there
especially with your
much
material.
steak knife in it?
Steak knifing?
Aye.
Oh, back.
Aye.
Do you know
Backstabbing?
what? The fucking no, I don't
No.
think so. I
No,
think the
That's good.
community's great.
But you know what? It's a small community, and I think if you've done that, you're going to get cold very quick. You're going to get
Oh,
left
you would.
out.
That's
yeah,
it.
you wouldn't get gigs.
And a lot of the comedians are the ones running the gigs. And if you're running around being a wee shitster or a backstabber or talking shit, you won't get gigs. You won't climb the ladder, and you won't do well.
But how much has it come? Like, I mean, I remember going to show. I love my comedy. I remember going to show. Jesus, it was right while ago in Belfast. I can't even remember the bar's name, and it was all.
It was a good one then?
Lavery's. It was. No, Sean. The quality was absolutely dirt, and it was shite.
Yeah.
And I was like, we have such, like, even through the troubles and back. Like, obviously we were young in that, but people relied on comedy. Like, people were funny. Like, they
Yeah.
made light of situations and they wrote things and they were funny. And you're like, it's the sense of humor here in this part of the world is glad. But since COVID, podcasts and the shows, boys have started doing videos and women started doing videos. Since that, and then all of a sudden you have the likes of Lavery's and then Kevin Hart, the largest comedian in the world.
You know,
Like, it has literally just skyrocketed.
he's actually only about 5 foot though. He's not even that large.
He's a
short ass.
Yeah,
Was he a proper rock star? Did he just rock in?
Yeah.
rock
hair.
out?
Yeah.
There was times there was nobody on stage for 5 or 10 minutes, and everyone was just sitting there in silence. And then next thing, 3 lads would just be 3 big bears would just be surrounding this wee tiny guy.
3, they'd be like 12.
Yeah.
You wouldn't see him walking from the door to the stage, because it would be him, and then these like massive like security surrounded him fully, walking him towards the stage. And he had this like thing where do you know, like, the normal thing for an MC to do is when they invite somebody on stage, they wait on stage until the comedian gets there, sort of shake hands or bump fists, hand them the mic, whatever it is, and head on. There's an exchange there, a 2
no
second.
handover?
There's
Nothing.
no handover with Kevin Hart. You put the mic on the stand and you left the stage and then he walked on. So
He wasn't sure the stage with somebody.
no, so all those times, like it was mostly Shane and Colin doing his warm up for him, doing his support for him, multiple times in Belfast when he was working on his tour show, and they were like they'd never met him for months. They shared a stage with him.
Somebody else had said
they were leaving every time.
exchanged a word.
No, they
Nothing
did at
at
the
all,
end
aye.
because they went down and supported him in Dublin, and he approached them, and I think they gave him a gift, and they had a chat and stuff, and he appreciated the work they put in. But for that long time, they'd be like, we haven't exchanged one word with him because we would walk off stage and then he would walk on, and then as soon as he was finished, he would time it from his car. I think walking up through the back, like he wouldn't arrive 1 minute before, and there was a whole thing about it was just all very quick. So I think obviously as well you have to respect the fact that he's one of the most famous people in the world, and this shit he must get day in day out. He just wants.
He's the biggest comedian on planet Earth.
Exactly.
Oh,
He's the
he's the
biggest
biggest
comedian.
draw. Oh,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. But I remember when he came off stage at Lavery's, he started walking towards me, and there was only like maybe 2 guys around him at that stage. And I was about to go like a seer and just sort of wink and fist pump him. And I was like, I'm not even going to waste my time, because if
you're
he
gonna
walks past me and doesn't do it, or if I get fucking wrestled to the ground
you
and
get
get
wrestled.
arm marked,
I
I'd have done it. I'd
reckon
have done it.
either way, blanked would have been a good meme on its own, or absolutely taken out.
Yeah.
Just fucking
Either
slide
way,
tackle him
You
into a
can't
wall.
take me down.
You could watermark that video.
Yeah.
but what a thing for Northern Ireland comedy. Like I know what you're saying. It would have been cool if you could have said, "Oh Jesus, we went in a rip together. Or we had the crack,"
Yeah.
and he said this, that, and that. But like just the fact that not even just one-off show, the fact that he was here and doing that, and
He worked on his tour show here,
Yeah.
yeah. I think as well, people expect the comedy scene to be like it was in America in like the 90s, whatever, and it's like rock stars just like doing drugs off just strippers' asses, and it's being like this big crazy big. Well, only we
just
would do that on
me.
like a Wednesday, don't we?
Just us, yeah.
But like
phone cancel the show.
like Kevin Hart is an example of someone who just works really hard and he isn't wasting time on other stuff. He's just turning up, doing his set and leaving, and that is what everyone in the comedy scene, most people in the comedy scene are like now. Like most of the guys in comedy now are married with kids and everyone. The green room is us all talking about our children's sleep regressions and how they're climbing out of the cot now.
You're
and
shattering the dream here.
No, that's
you know,
what it's
I
like.
genuinely pictured Peter Kay with a Russian model.
Yeah. Like we were sitting in Lavery's green room like 2 weeks ago, and it was like me, Colin, Aaron McCann, and Mickey Bartlett, and we were all talking about just like ailments. I was talking about the fact that Sean's now celiac, and Colin was like, "Oh, I take B12 vitamins," and everyone and Mickey got out his aloe vera for his hands, and I was like, "This is the most tame backstage of all time."
But the thing is, you are professionals now, and it's your livelihood now. So like, it's not. Them guys, they're living that lifestyle. They're in that in the 90s. They were just
that's just not the case now.
But you see a lot of the younger comedians coming through, and they're getting hammered after their set and all
Yeah,
things like
yeah.
that. Things that I suppose they've no dependence, so they've nothing to go home to. There,
You said that with so much jealousy. This was when I stopped playing rugby 2 years ago, and I used to see these young guys come in. They're like, "Where are we going this weekend?" And I was getting a text message going, "You get size 6 nappies in the way home." Like, and I was
That's
like,
how it
"This
is.
club's like going on the rip now." And I'm thinking, if I put them down for 8, I maybe have 2 before I start closing my. But I mean, the jealousy you had there, and you're like, these young lads, they're going on the rip, and I wouldn't do that,
Because even though like Sean started, so you started 15 years ago now, around the same time, and but he's had kids the whole time he was doing comedy, so you've never. It was, even though there probably was a time 15 years ago when some of the guys were going out in the rip after gigs, and Sean was always doing that, going home back with a size 6 nappies,
But
this is where you can put violins over this bit if you want.
But then the other side of that too is that you see there, we were saying that there, you don't realise how long you have to do. Like, people see the last 5% of people's careers. Like, you see these big names and they're like, and it was funny where it was Paddy was saying how long he'd been doing it, and I was like, geez, I only come across you maybe
This past year, yeah.
and so many comedians and yourselves, and people are like, the circuit to work up to be good enough now to be seen. There's a big
Takes a
tip around
long
in it.
time.
yeah, and it's almost as if, like, say if somebody saying you post a video online and somebody goes, "Oh, you're shit," you would near say to them, "Come to a fucking comedy club and see me doing my bread and butter." Do you know what I mean? And then call me shit.
Yeah.
Because you get laughter every single night in abundance. Do you know what I mean? You get claps, you get fucking like a.
And also, isn't it? and in fact, when you're in that and you're working a crowd and the crack's there, like sometimes you take things abstract straight out of it, you know, and people are in a good form and you're rolling with it.
There's times it doesn't feel like it's work. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
you're
of
just up
course.
there having the crack
crack
with the
on it.
audience.
That's when you know it's working. When you know it's going right.
yeah.
It might feel a lot like
Yeah.
work if you just hear somebody shuffling in the seat that's very far back.
Yeah.
It will feel a lot like work then. You'll be like, we have only 10 more minutes left.
There are corporate gigs where you maybe charge 5 to
More.
10 times your normal fee, and you're like, fuck this. I know it's going to be dog shit.
Yeah.
I know half the audience are going to be asleep. Half of them are not even going to listen to you. Half of them are going to hate your guts. I was like, if I'm doing this, there has to be a massive financial gain.
Yeah.
Otherwise, get somebody else to do it.
Let's look
Hire
at
a
weddings.
magician,
I've
hire
not done
somebody
weddings,
else.
but you've done weddings, and they're brutal too. Every comedian says weddings are the worst because
Yeah.
obviously you're
It's the
catering to
range.
3-year-olds
It's
and
the range.
83-year-olds.
Aye.
And
There's a
most people
70-year-old father
don't
of
know
the
you.
bride staring at you saying, a woman's holding my dinner over there, a Sunday
Yeah.
dinner. You need to stop telling jokes so she can bring me my dinner. I'm starving. I haven't had since
And
8:30 this
basically,
morning.
it's just the best man who thinks you're funny and booked you. You know what I mean? And nobody else gives a shit. The best man's like, this guy's got to come out and rip, you know. And it's like,
Well, on that note, guys, if any of you want a corporate or a wedding, you contact, and it's not 5 times 6 maybe. But like, I could get that. A wedding would be tight work. Like, even there, if you're writing a speech, like obviously I nailed the speech to your wedding, but like, and you done alright.
we had these best men. Each other's.
You know what he done? He told everyone at my wedding, everyone, I want you all to stand up and put your hands up in the air. And then he took out his phone and he took a picture and he goes, if this goes fucking shite, at least I got a standing ovation. That was a good. Maybe you do that in your next show.
Sean basically said to my dad during my speech that he was going to take me upstairs and book me later, and then he put his hand out like that there, and my dad didn't really hear what he said, and he fist pumped him, and it was like,
That was brilliant.
Well,
which by the way we didn't. If you're writing on your wedding night, you're definitely getting divorced.
well, Sean's brother, Sean's brother goes, look, he's such a droll sort of guy. Like, he's a real quiet guy. He's not, he wouldn't be always cracking. He's the one that sits and he's a good laugh, when you get him. But he's not that type. But he turned around and he goes, and Sean's, he goes, I don't know. Look, listen, you're starting your married life. The only advice I give you is you need to work on the communication. Tanya thinks they're going on honeymoon away to Portugal, and Sean thinks they're going to County Down because he told me earlier he's going to bang her all week. But I was like, there's the dad, and I'm just sitting there and I'm like, shit, don't laugh, don't be the loudest person laughing here.
That's brilliant.
But no, it's great to see that it's growing and you're at the point of that. Is there a point where you're like, you want to work more on the shows, or you want to work more on the circuit, or do you have to have that balance?
Depends really, doesn't it? It's I went for a while there and I was like, I wonder, should I give up doing stand-up? But what it was I wasn't gigging often enough. Yeah. And every time I was doing a gig, saying there was maybe 3 weeks between gigs, it was almost as if I had to relearn all my material again and go over everything and try and work on all the stuff as if from scratch again. Whereas when you're gigging consistently, maybe 3-4 nights a week, you almost have to do zero work behind the scenes because you've got all your ammunition, you've got everything, you're in the zone, you're...
Does your set evolve, or do you rewrite it every period of time?
It evolves. I just go through periods, and Diona, I'm sure, is different, but because I'm a one-liner comedian, I just sort of dabble in and out of jokes, and because I'm or in and out of sort of sets and bits of stories and things, but I just kind of like to do topical stuff and slagging the audience and doing things like that, so
and because
every one of my gigs is different.
His set could be in any random order and it would still make sense, if you know what I mean. Like, he can just pick and choose any joke and say it at any time, whereas with mine, because mine's is more storytelling and observational stuff, they have to have a link to the next bit, because it's it's very unprofessional looking if you finish a bit and then you go, and I also was on an airplane the other day. Like, it doesn't make, you have to make a connection for it to seem seamless. So that's why a set has to be in a particular order, and you'll continue to do it in that order, really. So it almost feels like monotonous. But with Sean's, he just he'll pick and choose. So there's not, which works out well for him because he's got a terrible memory.
Terrible.
He can't remember anything.
Who said that?
You just pick and but you don't. You have a bad Jesus. It'll be a bad job.
Terrible memory.
Sean will be on stage and go and just like decide there and then what's happening. And I think, well, and I suppose some storytelling comedians are like that as well. But I'm more like, I would want to know, this is the exact order of stories I'm going to tell when
You're
I get
getting
up there.
anxiety thinking about that. You're like,
I
shit,
like
if
to
I didn't know what I was doing.
What that 20 minutes or half an hour is going to sound like before I get up there. Do you know what
Is
I mean?
that the actress in you?
Probably. I'm like, I want to know exactly what the start, middle and end of this bit is, where Sean would get up and be a lot more relaxed about what he's going to say in the next 20 minutes, whereas I like to be more in charge of it.
Diona wouldn't even need a watch going on stage. If somebody's booked her to do 20 minutes or half an hour, she
You know
knows
the time.
exactly when
I'll
her
pick
time's up.
bits out and I go, I know that's going to be a 20-minute set, and I'll go up and do it. I'll not. You see comedians going, I've got 4 minutes left and I'll do this bit, and then I'll know I'll get off and it'll be like 20 minutes, 30 seconds. I know what to the T, like.
So your background is theatre, is it?
Yeah. So I always wanted to perform growing up, but I just didn't know in what forum. Like I knew I wanted to be in front of a camera and I wanted to work and I wanted to be an entertainer. So I was done acting was my main thing for years before I went into, but all the parts I started to get were leaning towards comedy. Like everything became comedy. All the TV work I was doing was comedy, and all the theatre work I seemed to be getting was mostly comedy. And then I was in a sketch group as well, so we were writing and performing sketches, and it just sort of felt like a natural progression into stand up then. But
You've been on TV. It was funny. I was only showing it before you come. Aidan didn't realise that you're in the Derry Girls.
Oh yeah.
The wee Russian lass. Tell me.
She was Ukrainian, by the way.
Oh,
And you know what? This is what I says. I goes, actually, Ukrainian sort of is not as funny now.
Yeah. But in it, they do keep calling me the wee Russian.
That's right.
Yeah.
But did you know when you were in the middle of that how big that was going to be?
I think so, yeah. Like about a year before it started shooting, I saw the press release that said there's going to be a comedy by Channel 4 set in Derry called Derry Girls, and I DM'd Lisa McGee, who wrote it, on Twitter, and was like, I have to be on this. I saw there's a comedy being made in Derry. I saw, surely I'm the only funny person in Derry.
How have you not contacted me?
I was like, yes, I'll do not. Am I not on your radar? And she said she was only in the middle of writing it at that stage, and but I sent her across my stuff, which I did. But anyway, obviously the way auditions work is your agent then submits you when a part comes in, and I did audition originally for one of the girls, but I look so much older than them, and they, even though like a lot of them are the same age as me, but they look like teenagers and it works, and I didn't. So then they like brought me back in and to be seen for the part that I ended up playing, Katya. And it made the part bigger for me as well. So it was a guest lead, because I think obviously it was a case of like I had been up for one of the lead parts. So I then ended up with a guest lead in an episode, and it was class. And I was there in the very first scene that was filmed was one of my scenes of the entire Derry Girls experience. And I remember us all sitting there, and it was in the cafe that Rihanna filmed her I Found Love video.
Yeah.
So it was in that cafe, and we all were like, this is going to be massive. The scripts are so funny. Like,
Yeah.
it could not be massive.
See, watching that pilot too. We
pilot
watched the
was
pilot at home. We
genius.
were like, this is going to be massive.
The first episode is
when
brilliant.
you're reading that, you're like, Jesus, this is real brilliant. This is
Yeah.
class. And you but like, it's still, to me, I remember watching it, and I says, my wife, you'll enjoy this. And she was like, no, it's not really meant. I goes, you'll enjoy it. And she loved it. Like, she would watch it again.
All age ranges and all people from different cultures and backgrounds have watched. Like, you would get messages from people in like, you know, South America and stuff who are big fans of it, and people, you're like, yes,
And
you're
the
reading
Kardashians.
subtitles.
And
Yeah.
and you have to laugh at, you know, some of the humor. You always wondered would come, because I laughed. There was parts that, you know, where they're writing like the difference in Catholic and Protestants was like, you go to Newcastle and we go to Bandor, and you're wondering how that humor would come across to somebody that's not aware or
I think by the time they got to that sort of episode, they'd built such a trust with an audience that know that's funny.
Yeah.
And also, most countries have a divide of some sort, so that sort of concept
I actually think
is
the
universal.
soundtrack was lethal.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was. It was
sometimes
pretty-
class. Yeah.
I was like, I'll go
That
out.
theme tune was class, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But and what about,
Comics.
is there any more TV work? Obviously, we're going to take a pause on
Are we?
on-
I don't know.
I'm going to give her a week off.
Yeah, good
Yeah.
man,
Have the
good man.
baby,
But
so-
then, in saying
So-
that, you're self-employed. It's not like you can take months off.
No, that's it. You can't. You really, really can't. And I feel like it's the relevance factor as well. Like, you feel like you have to stay relevant and you have to stay in people's faces, otherwise they might forget you, and that's the thing. So I'll take some time off, not much. I did the Blame Game like within 2 weeks of having my daughter last time. And so because about a year ago, I sort of made the decision to like really concentrate on stand-up and comedy more so than on acting. And I'm transitioned to a stand-up comedy agent. And so I've been doing a less like TV roles, but now I do the Blame Game and stuff, so I'm on that every year. So this autumn winter I'll have like my play The Hen Do will be out, which will be in Cookstown again in the Bernavon, and that'll take me all through August, September, some of October, and then October to Christmas will take me with the Blame Game. So that's the next TV job, I suppose. I think.
Very good. Sean, have you dabbled in any acting or anything? No.
Yeah.
Sean and I were in a Christmas show together.
Oh, he is very good.
Yeah. We've been in a few shows together, haven't we?
Yeah.
But do you enjoy the acting side of it, or
Not usually. I don't know.
He
I
hates
think
learning lines.
Yeah, it's the memory again.
Yes.
I hate learning lines. I remember I had to do an audition once in Derry for, I think it was one of the fairy godmothers or something. Or what do you call those two?
It was-
Ugly sisters or
yeah,
something? Was it?
panto.
Yeah. And I had to learn like one page, and it took me about 4 days, and I still couldn't learn it. And I went up there and I was holding the page, and I was like, just this isn't for me.
And one of the Christmas shows we done together, because I learn lines really quickly and I could know everyone else's lines as well, but that's just because I'm used to it. It's a muscle. And Sean, I remember we were going down the car each day to rehearsals, and we'd be like going through the lines whilst we're driving and like trying to help each other learn the lines. And Sean would be like, I still don't have a fucking clue what's happening in this show.
Not
I
a
just come
clue.
into my part.
I just
Don't know
hear-
who died. Don't know who
Yeah.
went where.
Like I hear a line before mine, I'll say my line. I don't know what's happening, because he'd be all, "Who's Carol?" And I'd be like, "The lead part."
With Kieran Bartlett dressed as a girl, and then we'd have Beetlejuice coming in, and then I'm dressed as Rodney, and I'm like, what?
Paddy McDonald was in it too, and Kieran Bartlett. It was a trip.
Unreal.
Like.
But
And then you also film. There was a lot of stuff like for Soft Border Patrol we filmed. Sean filmed for that too, and it was one of the scenes that ended up didn't make the cut. Like loads of the stuff didn't make the cut because it ends up not Brexit related, and they wanted it to be really Brexit heavy. So I think you'd be more happy to do stuff like that because improvising.
Yeah. But then what we did as well was we'd done tight shorts for BBC Online, but what did you call it? Late License?
Oh wow.
We were heavily involved in Late License Series 2, which was out about 6 or 7 years ago, I think now, maybe not as long. And
Like a
we
series
got
of a sketch show for
sketch
BBC.
show, but we got to write our own sketches and then be in it. So you got to write according to what you thought your strengths were and what you wanted to do, and you could write as little lines for yourself as possible, which is what I
that sounded
what I tended
really
to do.
good fit for you.
Yeah, so it was right up my
Yeah.
street. But I would never say no to ever acting, Joe. I think I would like to do it. Like we're watching Blue Lights at the minute. It's fucking incredible. I don't know if
I
you've
just
seen
finished
it.
it yesterday.
It's
Oh,
brilliant, isn't
no
it? We're
spoilers.
halfway through, like, but we love it. Like, and if things like that came up, like we were watching, I was like, I'd love to play a real hard man role because I'm quite a softy, I think, at heart. And even though I've done like the boxing and things like that, and I do a bit of sort of training in that aspect, I feel like when it comes to being a parent and things like that, I am really soft and really gentle and really softly spoken and things like that. So I think I would love to play something that's just completely different.
The Grant Mitchell job.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
Don't say
headbutting
much.
nuns, I don't
Just,
give a
just
fuck.
one-liners.
Aye.
The thing is, it's so unusual to get cast in something that's completely against your type. You know,
Yes.
you know what I mean? Like, I have always been seen for the silly, funny, quirky ones, or like the bitch. That's my two ones. Like, you'd never see me playing like the prince.
Why the bitch?
I've got that face. Like, I've
She's
never.
looking at me. I don't know why.
Yeah. Like, you'll never see me in like a Hallmark movie playing like the princess who runs off to get married to the prince. I'll be the bitch trying to stop the wedding. That's my type. So
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to cast you as like a drug lord, but maybe like
They will when I
The
shave my
guy-
head and get a fucking Nazi tattoo.
yeah.
Well,
See what's out there.
And look, not just let's look at it. Not just the comedy side of it or the performance. It's even the TV shows. You know, that are going on around here. The filming that's
I
going
know
on
so
around.
much. It's great.
Like,
It's amazing.
But there's a big platform. I see a lot of the guys now are doing like small, like when it's not vlog but videos, like piss take videos online and stuff like that. Would that be something that you would be interested
Like,
in?
do
or-
stuff stuff.
Aye.
I suppose it just depends on what the project is or what it is. Like, I mean, I mean, I suppose it just depends. There's always a fine line, isn't there?
There's
With spiff
there's
stuff.
and there's time. Like, you know, like that's people just look at that and go, oh Jesus, the time I'd say involved in some of them is ridiculous.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
the take
It's
and
the editing
people
and-
see this 5-minute clip and be like, well,
Yeah.
and don't realize that there's 3 or 4 days of somebody doing some
And
work.
because obviously, like, the way it is now is like, to sell tickets, you really sort of need a social media following, and to get a social media following, you have to great content, and then the great content takes a lot of time to write, film, edit, upload, blah blah blah, and like that's a full-time job, and like that's the stuff that you're taking a gamble on, because you're like, well, it's not specifically like today I'm going to spend 6 hours making this for my Instagram to try and. No one's actually paying you that day to do that, but you're hoping that you're just investing in yourself, and that'll pay off. So it is always, everything is a gamble. That's the thing. There's no straight road to, you know, earning a certain amount or being in a certain headliner or whatever. Like in other jobs, it's like, well, if you do this exam, you'll qualify for this band of whatever, and you'll have that promotion. That's a fact. It doesn't happen.
Doesn't work like that
Some of
anymore.
the best comedians
an overall brand, isn't it? It's like,
don't make much money from it, you know, but it's not, because it's not about just being a brilliant comedian. It's about all the other things. The social media thing, which can drive you mad, is like so big now.
See, with social media too, and especially with TikTok, I think you get rewarded now for consistency rather than for how good your stuff is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're posting twice, 3 times a day,
yeah.
you're going to have 10 times the followers of someone who's really funny or really good at something,
But posts once a week.
but posts once or twice a week. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's just, that's the way things are going now. So it's almost like quantity over quality, where it almost used to be the opposite.
Yeah,
So-
it's almost like girl bands and boy bands back in like years and years ago. Like they didn't have to really, like you could just get in, like they could manufacture boy bands and girl bands through auditions, whatever, and put them together, and then everyone else did all the work to like sell them as these big like Spice Girls or, you know, like all these sort of bands. Whereas now you see all the artists really have to build themselves. There's less of that because it's a social media world now, you know.
It's funny, we had an Irish rugby player on yesterday, and this is what we're talking about. You can be a great player on the pitch, but it's all a business now.
Yeah.
You have to develop your presence.
You're a brand.
And
It's like the
if
Conor
you wanna,
McGregor effect, isn't it?
but it is, and like I suppose people have become more aware. Do you worry? This is Sean's worries about this all the time, especially with me. I am the least PC person ever, and it's not because I have a bad heart of that. I think bad things, but I could come out with something that's like. Do you worry about that now? Because
No.
you don't give a shit, do you?
No. I mean, obviously.
You do to a certain extent.
No, I mean, I would never say something that's racist or homophobic or, you know, xenophobic or anything like that. That's not nice. But I don't worry about calling somebody a cunt on a podcast or something, because I'm not afraid the BBC won't hire me because of it. Because
What did you just call me?
But I get what you're saying. But it's got so funny. He'd be like, "Oh, you need to watch. And,
you're certainly not worried.
And I, you know what it is, but I genuinely believe this because I'm not homophobic. I said this to somebody the other day. I don't give a fuck who sleeps with who. I genuinely don't care. If you're happy, be happy. I don't care. But sometimes I say things that are maybe not exactly
it's a
appropriate.
joke.
Or even maybe ignorant. You know, we're coming from a backward. Like, you know, I don't know all the terms about things, and maybe I'll say something and I'll be like, I don't have that badness. I don't have like a bad intent towards that person.
Yeah.
But people are so quick to be offended now. That because I've said that, and this is what I said to him. He goes, if they're going to get offended at me when I don't really give a shit, well then they're going to get offended.
I don't think people allow for context anymore. Like if you say something, maybe because you just don't know the right word yet, there's a lot of like, well, they'll not let you learn and grow as a person from that. Instead, it's just you're cancelled because you've said something that's inappropriate now, but you don't know that that's not the word, that's not the appropriate word now. Maybe that's the word you used growing up or whatever. And I think that's wrong. I think everything's a learning moment. We should be allowed to learn and grow and change and accept, okay, I'll not use that. Now that you have called me out in that, I'm not going to say that word anymore, and I'll use the appropriate word. Instead of just, that's it, your career's over. That's wrong.
And you see it all the time. People dig dirt and shit up from Twitter from 10, 15 years ago, and they're like, you said this years ago, and you're like, fucking hell, imagine all of us had a fine tooth comb run through our...
But he got through Sean's
But
Twitter when he
Constance's-
was doing Ireland's Got Talent, remember? That was a fucking shitfest.
I was typing in like all these like disgusting, horrible words, and my
And then
name
his
beside
name.
it, and anything I found, I was just like, delete.
And now I'm telling you, that was like a day and a half's work. We were going the shit Sean used to, and because you just think, I'm just trying to get a reaction around brand new in comedy, it was like more like stuff that was like a long time, like just when you joined Twitter, and we were like, whoo, that person's dead now, delete that.
Because I was following Joe, the likes of Frankie Boyle, and it was almost that era, Joe, like
Controversial.
Mock the Week, and everything was controversial, and I just had a dark, sick sense of humour.
Like, but you have to see what was funny. You know, in the like, this is subjective. People's changing now. What was okay? So when you wrote that might have been perfectly okay. Now you show not perfectly okay, but maybe at that time you weren't enlightened or thing. But also, I would say to somebody, meet an 18-year-old yourself. You wouldn't recognize the person. Like some of the things the people I would have hung around with, I definitely wouldn't hang around with now, or the things that I would have thought I wouldn't think now. So like to hold you accountable for somebody you don't even recognize anymore.
You're a
When
different
you were
person.
18,
You're a different person.
But it's even like whenever you put the Jungle Book on now on Netflix, it flags up at the start saying that there is like inappropriate cultural, like misappropriation in this, and like it's
Jungle Book.
at the start of the Jungle Book, and
Jungle
it
Book.
says like this: there's a lot of wrongdoing in the show, but what we've done is left it as it was, and use this as a moment for us all to ignite the conversation about, you know, xenophobia, or like it was just like racism basically, and let's have that conversation and learn from it. And what they could have done is just took Jungle Book away, but instead they've allowed it to say there because there actually is loads of racism in the Jungle Book, but we can learn from it, because that's what we should be allowed to do, is learn from the things rather than going, oh, you said this word 10 years ago, off you fuck.
Let's
comedy.
educate ourselves instead of brushing
Yeah.
everything under
It's
the
comedy
carpet.
the last fight, because like you should have a license to say, you know, things that
I think so.
funny and-
Here,
you
I'm
can
loving
get
being
away.
pregnant on stage at the minute, because the shit I can get away with.
I might wear a bump after.
Honestly, I did an interview this morning for Belfast Live, and they were like, because the first time I was pregnant, I wasn't on stage because it was the pandemic, and this time it's been more like, oh, I'm doing stand up, you know, while I'm pregnant, and it's a different experience than when you're not pregnant, obviously. And they were like, and how are you finding that? And I was like, oh, I'm actually really enjoying it, because nobody wants to be horrible to the pregnant lady. Nobody wants to just put me into labour on stage, although that would be class. But
Whoa. How close are we? How, you know.
I'm like 8 months now.
Oh shit.
Any minute. You used to make me drive the whole way down here on a bumpy road.
This baby could be called M1.
Yeah. But it's almost great because you can get away with much more now that you're pregnant, because people will, and also like people don't see you as a threat if they think you're trying to like overtly flirt with somebody in the audience and you're just having a bit of crack. You're all clearly, I'm not trying to say to your husband, look at the ship of me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But give me a shout in 2 months time.
Yeah. I'll be back.
Introducing my husband.
But on stage now, like even when I MC, I have to go out there and I pretty much say to the audience, I was like, listen, anything that's set up here tonight is not to fucking start wars. It's not. We're up here to make you laugh.
Is it not dicky that
Yeah.
you have to do that? Like,
Yeah, it is a little bit,
But
but
this
it's
is
almost
what-
a bit of a
this is
fear
what-
in it. Do you know what I mean? Where
aye.
you don't want something to be taken out of context and you cancelled or whatever.
Aye,
It's-
and especially after the whole
So easy.
Chris Rock, Will Smith thing, you know, after that, lots of comedians were like, just our audience members now going to feel entitled to be super offended, and
Yeah.
and you were
And
seeing
lash out or
and
come up on
lash
stage,
out.
you know,
It was
yeah.
like now Will Smith has opened that gate for actually audience members. If you're offended by a joke, can come up here and punch us now.
Yeah.
You know, and then there's that element of shit, you know, and you were seeing videos a lot online around that time of like people and audiences standing up and stopping the show and ruining the show because they're woke and they hate the joke, and it's like, fuck off, you know. There's
I would love to see the one in our show. She'd be like, "Get the
I
I was thinking Woke and Hate the Joke's a great Netflix
know.
series.
Yeah, no, it's good, isn't it?
That's the title of this podcast.
You
Welcome
heard it
to
here first, guys.
But look, listen, we know you have a tight schedule, and we don't want to hold a pregnant lady up, especially when the carpet's only new. No, it's been great crack, and I genuinely think we could quiz you for a couple of hours. But
We'll do it again down the line.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll bring our
100%.
daughter. You could look after our daughter, couldn't you?
Yeah.
That boy can't
And
even
our
look
son.
after himself.
Yeah.
This boy's still being babied, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure he's the guy. But look, guys, it's been great, and I wish you the best of luck with the show
Thank
coming
you.
up. And our both our wives have tickets booked because that's an hour rip. They're obviously going on,
Yeah.
so
Delighted.
they'll be that, and they really enjoyed the last one, so I'm sure they'll enjoy
Oh,
this
that's
one.
good.
Class.
Oh no, this one's shite.
Get your tickets. And Sean, thank you very much. We'll catch a show of yours. Well,
We're doing
what?
We're doing Elf in Belfast this
Oh,
Christmas in the
yes.
Grand Opera House. So make sure you get along to see that. It's an adult
if you need a
comedy.
donkey, I played donkey in my school and I nailed it. Hey, so if you need a donkey, I'll play
You
that
need
part. for you.
Nas.
But I think this is modern times to balance it out. Me and Sean will go on the rip to your show, and we'll let the girls go on the rip theirs.
Brilliant.
good,
And I'll
sounds good.
just sit in the house.
Thank you
Oh, no,
very
I'll
much.
be in that show. Sorry.
I was going
Anyway.
to say they might need you
I
there
was
for
going
that
to
one.
say, if I'm in the house, there's no show. But yeah, okay. Thank you very much
play
for
a
having
few
us
parts
on.
in that, don't you?
Pardon?
Do you play a few parts in it?
No, I refuse to do that. It's too much work for me. No, there's this show will be a cast of 4, 3 girls. It's my character, a girl who plays my mum, a girl who plays my younger sister, and the 4th guy is, we're just like flipping the tables here, and he's a multi-role, so he'll be playing about 10 parts. So we're going to put him through the fucking ringer, and we're just all gonna. The rest of us will just have a great time.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant, guys. Thanks very much.
Cheers for having us.
Cheers, thank you.